Good morning, I'm Tom Hazlett, and I'll be interviewing Bill Goodlett
Come on back.
on October 6, 2022 at the Bellevue College Veterans Center. Bill, let's go to your biological details, or where you were born and what were your parents like and their occupation, just to start off.
Okay, well, I was born on a farm in outside Taylorsville, Kentucky, which is about 50 miles southeast of Louisville. My dad was, of course, a farmer, and later on he went to work for the state highway department and still farmed. He got to work. He couldn't make a living just farming, and so I worked on the farm. That's what I grew up doing. When I turned 18, I decided I didn't want to keep raising tobacco, so it was a lot of work, so I joined the Air Force and wound up in basic training, of course, down in Texas, and my first duty station was off at Air Force Base, Nebraska. This is 1963. I was a vehicle operator here, and I met my wife here. She was from Iowa, and she was in Omaha working, and we got married, and we had a daughter. In 1966, I went to Vietnam the first time as an operator. Ran convoys for a year over there, up and down the roads. I was at Fan Rang Air Base. I was like the 152nd man there. And we had the 101st Airborne over the hill from us. That was our protector, so to speak. And I more or less hauled that base in there from Cameron Bay and the Tring. And
Well, let's go back to your childhood days. Did you have any siblings?
yes, I got two brothers and a sister. I'm the oldest, and my next brother to me, he's 6 years younger. He went into the Marines, and he actually was in Vietnam too. And then another younger brother and a younger sister who are still living in Kentucky at this time. And
Did they that one did the one older brother or younger
younger, he's 6 years younger than me.
join the Marines?
He joined the Marines, yes. And matter of fact, kind of a story. We were in Vietnam together,
Oh, really?
and which was not supposed to happen, if you recall those. And can I get into that a little later? Because that's
Okay. So why did you join this service? Besides the tobacco.
Well, I guess I just wanted to travel. I wanted, that was just in my blood, I guess. And like I say, farmer wasn't exactly my choice after a while there. And so I went in. One of my buddies went in the Marine Corps. Actually, both of us went down and tried to join up when we were 17. His parents signed and mine didn't. So he come back and told me about it. So I went in the Air Force.
Did he? So was this right after high school, or?
Yes, I was 18. Yes, right after high school, and I mean, yeah, I had to raise that year's crop. Tobacco you sell around this December, and so I joined up in January, and when that was all done that year.
Did you have sports in high school?
Played basketball and baseball. Yeah, I'm from Kentucky, so basketball was a big one back then, and we didn't even have a football team at our school at that time. I think they do now, but not at that time. They didn't even have a football team. But,
So there was no jobs after high school, or did you?
no, I just worked on other farms when I want to make some money. Help during the busy times, cutting tobacco and those type things. And I did work one summer for the city. Part of a summer they were putting in a new. My hometown's 1,000 population. Okay, it's a county seat, but you've got one red light, and they were putting in new water mains all through the town, and so I worked at that for a couple of months, and when before I was just 4 in the Air Force. Yeah.
Were you surprised at the military life and basic training?
Not really. I think being a farm boy, you pretty well were used to work, used to doing what you're told to do, you know, it's just, I think farm boys have a lot better advantage when they go into the military than the city boys do, you know. They're used to getting up in the morning and doing all kinds of work before you go to school, you know. And, you know, that's, had certain cows that had to get milked and fed and do all that stuff.
How do your parents feel about?
They weren't too happy about it. My dad was never in the service, and not much of my family's ever in the service. But I had an uncle, my mom's younger brother. He was in the Korean War, and but other than that, there wasn't too much military in my family. And my dad was. I told him I wasn't going to be there for next year. He'd already rented land for me to raise, and I said, "Hey, I'm gone." And I actually didn't tell him I was leaving until the morning I left, so because I knew it was going to be trouble. So.
Did they take you to the induction set?
No, my buddy did. One of my buddies. So, you know, it was about into Louisville. It's about 45. In those days, about an hour drive. You know.
Yeah.
And Dad didn't have time to do that. He was working, and Mom worked, and so I didn't.
They didn't like that.
No. But that changed after time. You know.
You joined the Air Force. Why the Air Force, not Navy, or one of the?
Well, I don't know. I like the Air Force. I guess it's just the ideal of the Air Force, and like I say, I tried the Marines when I was 17. And I couldn't get, my dad wouldn't sign, so now I'm not going there. So I wound up going to the Air Force. I just
your buddy did join the Marines, though.
Yes.
How'd he like that?
You know, he got through it. He done it good. He done his 4 years and got out. You know, but yeah, he told me about all the stuff though he had to go through, and so I decided, I think I go to the Air Force.
You mentioned that you were a heavy equipment.
I was an equipment operator. Yeah.
How was that training like?
There wasn't much to it. It was all on the job training. And I got sent here to office straight from basic training and you know, motor pool. You know, so I was here for about 3 years, and then I got my orders to go to Vietnam the first time. So.
What was the best part of being here at Offutt then, during that time?
Well, I don't know. It was, of course, I met my wife here. You know, I guess that's the best part of it. We got married and had a daughter, and so you know that was the best part of it. So, yeah, and we had some. I drove a lot of generals around, of course, and motor pool and all that, and I used to drive the big buses and we go out to honor guards out for funerals and stuff like that, driving them. I went down to my wife's hometown one time, and of course her little brother and all were, you know, proud of that. I was there in that big bus, you know, bringing the people in, you know. So yeah, it was okay. Yeah, it was good.
Anything bad happened during that time?
No, not really. I mean, we just going along, you know.
Tell us after Offutt, life after Offutt.
Well, like I say, I left here and went to Vietnam, and this is 1966, January '66. So that it hadn't built up that big yet. Everybody went through Tonsanute at that time, and I got there, and me and my buddy both we went there together, and he was the best man at my wedding here. And we were in basic training together, you know. I don't know, we was kind of hooked up there. He's from Philadelphia. But everything, we got Tonsanute, we're processing in Saigon, and everything was kind of different for us. The ones that go into this APO number, we're the only ones that got issued M16s. We're the only ones that they told us all to send our money home, we wouldn't need it. And so you're kind of like, where am I going, you know? And but it was new base. It just opened up there, and we were basically, I'd say we hauled that whole thing in there. The convoys we get pot shots once in a while, you know, and it was kind of interesting. We had rubber plantation. We went to Cameron Bay a lot, up from Fan Rang to Cameron Bay, because all this stuff come in on ships, and we load off the ships down there, and we had a rubber plantation. We had to go through all these rubber trees and stuff, you know, and it was a good spot to get hit, right? And but we never had much trouble. We'd go through, and the Army come through an hour later, and they get hit. And we found out that sort of the intelligence told us that they would see that Air Force on the side of our trucks, and they thought, oh, we can't bother them, planes would be right on us. So I liked their thinking, you know. So one time they blew up bridges found out on both sides of us. So we had to spend the night out there. That was a little hairy, but nothing really happened. It was just a long night, that's for sure. Until they got some bridges built in there. So.
To my knowledge, at the time, the Air Force didn't teach you any perimeter protection. Did you guys actually come up with that, or?
With what now? I'm sorry.
Well, like perimeter protection, if you were stuck.
Oh, we had air police with us.
Oh.
We had a Jeep in front, a Jeep in the back, and we had all kinds of tractor trailers and stuff, and 2x6s, 4x6s, or whatever. I can't remember. Okay. Anyway, the trucks, and we always had a wrecker with us, big military wrecker. Sometimes they'd pull a third of the convoy would come back in and broke down, right, or whatever, you know, and so we had that much security with us, and it was a base duty to full shotgun with us. So I might get somebody out of admin. That's his duty for this week. He's got a full convoy, so he'd be sitting over on the other side of me because I can't shoot and drive, you know, or whatever, you know. So yeah, it was a base thing, and I think it was every 25th convoy we get a new convoy commander, some lieutenant. We'd have to break him in, and you know, so that's what I did for a year. One time we took one convoy up to the lot, which is up in the mountains, and that was a little hairy. We was the first Americans over that road. And we had air cover going up and stuff, and what we was doing, the lot was like a resort. It's up in the mountains, it was cool, you know, and it was a French resort when the French done the country, you know, and it was kind of like a no fire zone, you know. The Viet Cong would come in there and rest, and the South Vietnamese, they just didn't bother each other while they were in there, you know. And we had to go up and we were going up bobtail, because there was 133s bringing in some kind of trailers with stuff on them straight from the States into the lot, up to the lot, and we were just going to pull them out of there and take them and set up where they were going. But we had one low boy trailer with a forklift on it, and the turns were so tight we'd have to kind of maneuver to get that thing around and go up those mountains and stuff. So that was a little hairy, because we didn't know what was going to be going on there, and nobody had been in that area before. So, but we made it through it okay, no problem. So.
Anything during that time? How old were you?
Let's see,
about
44 or 20. I think it's 20, 21 when I went over there first time. Yeah, I turned 22 there. Yeah.
Any during that first tour, was there anything interesting happening to you?
Well, it was quite a culture shock, I guess you would put it, you know. We lived in a tent for a year, and well, when I say a tent, they had a concrete pads. They were going to build these. Well, eventually they did put up the sides and top, and they just used a tent as a 20-man tent for the roof, you know. So that's what I lived in for a year, and then something interesting is, you know, that was, like say, early '66, and still wearing the regular Air Force fatigues with the white U.S. Air Force, your name, white tape. And we'd been there probably 3 or 4 days, and we started getting mortars one night. So we out in the, we had a sandbag revetment right out in front of each one of them, you know, and you look around and you can see those white stuff, you know, the white stripes and everything. So next day they were passing out black markers to everybody, and that's when they started with the black tape tags and black stripes and all that stuff, you know. So.
During that time, did anyone get hurt?
Not too bad. No, not that I recall right off. I mean, there was, yeah, no, not really.
How'd you like the food over there? The local food?
Ah, get used to it. I mean, I used to eat some, they had these strip things that they built up right outside the gate, you know, and go down and get some food sometimes, yeah. I kind of got used to it, and some of that stuff I still couldn't eat, but you know, I don't want to think about what I've eaten.
Then you rotated back to the States. Tell me about that.
Okay, I left there. Actually, my 4 years was up, and so I extended for 6 months because either I had to come back for discharge or extend. And you know, I'm married with a child. I'm not sure exactly what I want to do, so I extended 6 months, and we came back to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base up in Ohio. And again, just motor pool type working, and I wound up re-enlisting in a cross-trained to aircraft loadmaster, and went down to Texas for school, and Shepherd Air Force Base down in Texas, and then I got my assignment to the 58th MAS Military Airlift Squadron in Warner Robins, Georgia, C-141s, and that was a shock to my wife. She said, "What's all this red dirt goes from Iowa?" You know, that's the dirt down here, okay? It was kind of funny. One day there was a chain gang working on a road outside our we had a duplex down there, and a new one, matter of fact. It was nice, but anyway, she was really all that kind of got to her. But flying 141s, we had to go to school up in Dover for the aircraft after loadmaster school. Had to go up school up in Dover, Delaware. We were out of that wing, out of Dover, and back to flying into Vietnam. We'd take off and pick up a load somewhere and going into Anchorage, Alaska, Elmendorf, and we get off and the airplane keeps moving. We get off, another crew gets on, and the cargo kept moving. So we go into, and we staged with, staging, we staged with Dover, Charleston, McGuire, yeah, I think that was 4. And so any of the airplane would land with, we go into crew rest, and 10 hours later we get alerted, we go out, get on the airplane, they get off, we get on, head on over, we go over to Dakota, Japan, go back in crew rest, the airplane gets, another crew gets on, it keeps moving, and then get alerted and go into Vietnam, drop off our load, maybe pick up something, do something, come out to Okinawa, do it again, then back to Alaska. Now there, when we get off, we get a new airplane, they get alerted. Now if we had a McGuire or Charleston airplane or whatever, we had to take it home. So if we didn't get our own airplane, you know, had to take it home. And they had a 141 flying all these bases every day, getting the crews back where they belong, right? So if you got there after that wind, then you had to spend another night away from home, right? So and that's why I got a lot of flying hours, because everybody flew out of time every quarter, just about. So
a farm boy from Kentucky, how do you like learning how to fly and being a loadmaster?
Oh, I love it, yeah.
Was it hard, or?
No, it was, you know, school, you know, and then I think I adapted. I'm pretty good with math, so I adapted to it pretty fast. I mean, if you know anything about loadmaster, you got to figure out where the CG is and all this stuff. And then airdrop, I went to, they sent us up to Fort Campbell, Kentucky for rigging school, and with the Army. And you don't have to rig a load, but you have to know it's rigged right when you look at it. You know what I'm saying? So we had to go up there and kind of went through their rigging school to make sure that when a load comes out, I can make sure everything's, you know, I'm gonna drop a Jeep, but it's not gonna come apart. You know what I'm saying? So, so it was kind of fun and doing all that, and that was kind of fun because all of them guys were going to Army guys going to rigger school. They're marching and running and stuff, and we just kind of we just kind of walk along, you know. But
did you ever drop a load?
Oh yeah, drop dropped lots of paratroopers and.
Oh, I mean, without something go wrong. And,
Oh yeah, yeah. I was doing. As a matter of fact, it was on one of my test flights that the main chute just wasn't hooked or whatever. But you know, I can't see that when I'm looking at all the, you know, straps and all that stuff. I can't see where. So you got a ejection chute. Then you got that pulls the main chute out with a G11A 100-foot. It was a Jeep, but it was a Jeep with a piece of concrete for a motor. You know, just the right weight and all that stuff. You know, it's kind of like one of those cartoons. It's just a puff of dust. You know. But you know, I passed all right. But
when you were dropping troops off, any of them get scared?
oh yeah, I don't care how many jumps they've made. They're all chatty and everything, but the closer you get to DC, it just gets quiet. You know, until you get to the, where they're going to drop at. You know.
Oh, really? So after when you were flying that rotation, I guess you would call it, were you in country long?
No, we just land, load, land and unload, and load if we got something to send back or whatever, and that was it. And then but you see, you didn't have to even land to get combat pay. You just overfly. And if you were going get towards the end of the month, you're probably gonna get it. We had flight examiners out there in the circuit just going around doing spot checks, right? So get toward the end of the month, you know you're probably gonna get a spot check because he wants to go in and come out getting 2 months on one run, right? So, you know, that was a game.
So how long were you a loadmaster on the 141?
Let's see what there. About close to 2 years, I guess. And then I got orders to go to Okinawa on C-130s. And so I went to Fort Bragg, up at Fort Bragg, was it? An Air Force base there. Hit Bragg and it together. But anyway, I went there for C-130 school. And hooked up with a guy there, and we became good friends, and we had to go to, there was a base just outside of Nashville. It's not there anymore. God, I can't remember, so many long ago. We had to go there for airdrop. And so me and him went up there together, and we drove up there. And but that airdrop, it was we had one of the airplanes, the tail broke off. Hit the runway and the tail broke off. And right by behind the troop doors, you know, because that's a weak spot, I guess. And so I figured they grounded while they didn't, you know. So, but you're talking about your brother was an engineer, right? And one of the guys I know was an engineer. He was going to Caribou's, and he come in one day and said, "Oh man, we had 3 bird strikes today." I said, "Oh yeah," I said, "all 3 from the rear." In other words, the birds were going faster than he was. So But anyway, I've done LAPES there. I don't know if you ever heard of LAPES drops. It's low altitude extraction system, all right? You fly over, get the wheels down, and you got a chute out there that would just pickle down smaller, and you're about 10, 15 feet off the ground, right? And then they wanted we hit a button, and the knife cuts that chute, and all of a sudden it goes out and snaps down, you know? And in theory, it works good, but when you got pilots are training too, and they're hitting the ground, and we're trying to stand back and work, and we're bouncing. You know? But I never done it for real, just done it for practice. But
all right, let's talk about your 130 experience.
okay, well, I got done through training, and I went to Okinawa. My wife was still in the States. Had to wait to get housing before she came over. This is 1969, or I can't remember, probably around January, somewhere in there. It seems like that's when I always went somewhere. But we go in country for 11 days, come back to Okinawa for a week, back in country 11 days, and so on. And that's that way you can stay there for 3 years because you're accompanied there. We were on a mission one day with C-130A models, and we just put pallets in and put straps across them for any kind of pastures we got or anything. We didn't worry about suits or nothing. And had a load of Vietnamese. I don't know. They were some kind of political people or whatever, you know. And we were going this little dirt strip up closer to DMZ, and we got a bunch of small arm fire on the way in, which is nothing, you know, new. But I caught one in the thigh, and we landed, and I got the people off and everything, and then a Marine medic come out, and I didn't know when I first got it. I thought, man, I always stuff ricocheting, right? I thought maybe a cable broke or whatever. Then I felt something just slap me in the thigh here, and I looked and had a tear in my. We wore jungle fatigue type stuff, and we always stood at the back troop door. We had to put a seatbelt around the rod there, and that way I'm looking at them, and I got the headset on, and you know, and they weren't smart enough to lead the airplane, so they always hit the tail, you know. But so this Marine medic come out and put a pressure bandage on me, and they were going to take me to wait for a helicopter to take me back me. But then they started motoring the air, mortars started coming in, because I called it C-130 motor magnet, because they were always trying to get one. So my aircraft commander, he said, put him back on, we're taking him back to Cameron Bay. By the time we got back there, I was hurting a little bit, but so I spent, I don't know, they kept looking for the bullet. They were digging, I mean, just digging in there, and I had a little hole like that to start with. I got a scar like that now, but of course, it's a field hospital right there. This is out on the field, and so they finally got an X-ray, and it says right down with the bone, and be a major operation, take it out, and probably won't ever bother you. I said, sounds good to me. Get me out here back to Oakland Highway, you know. So it's still there, and moved. I get an MRI once in a while, and they say, hey, you got a bullet? Yeah, I know. And but I don't know. I guess I was there probably about 4 or 5 days. I can't remember. The big thing that happened was that my brother was in Vietnam then. I remember in the Marines, and they had Red Cross come around, and my wife was still in the States at that time, and they said, you want to notify your wife? I said, no, that's okay. No, I don't want to bother her, you know. They come back a little later, and they says, well, your grandmother died, and your brother's going home out of the Marines, and we have to tell your wife why you're not coming. So they sent a message to her that I pulled a wound to the thigh, you know, whatever. And so I finally got a call through to her with the people there. They helped me, and she said, well, exactly where'd you get hit? And I said, well, we're like 3 inches getting a divorce. And she knew I was all right then, so I just but that was I don't know how many times during the stay there I had to get under the bed with a mattress on me because there's motor in the base and stuff like that. And finally I got back to Okinawa and some light duty for a while and got back to flying again. So, and that went on for, well, we didn't quite do 3 years there because they closed the base down. We was at Naha, which is down the southern end. We actually shared a runway with the commercial airport there, and they closed that base, and I come back to the States, and we went down to Eglin Air Force Base in Georgia, flying C-130 rescue, C-130 P model rescue. And I didn't care much for that. I was just landing back where he took off from, pulling alert, and we refueled helicopters. I didn't care for that. And we got there at night, and we got these hose coming out of the wings out here, and this helicopter comes up, and I'm standing there with the altice light in the window. If it gets too close, I got to shine that, you know. And I don't know, just signal off, and it's dark anyway. You know. But anyway, I did that for, I don't know, we was there less than a year. My second daughter was born there, and long story short, I wound up cross-trained to be a flight attendant, flight steward, and I went up to Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland, and spent a few months in another outfit there, which is kind of like a training, and they observe you, and then they bring you over to the 89th, which was, I think it's different now. I think it's the first MASH or something. But then it was the 89th Military F Command wing and the presidential. I spent almost 7 years there doing that, and I flew all over the world. And used to kind of have fun because being a flight steward, you know, actually there were 3 of us there. There were load matchers, flying 130s over there. One of them was in loadmaster school with me. He had cross trained from boom operator at the time, and the other guy was a loadmaster over in Vietnam, flying 130s too. So every once in a while, we fly in civilian clothes most of the time there, and of course in Andrews, and every once in a while you have to get your uniform on for something, and we kind of got eyeballed a lot with all of our medals and stuff, being flight stewards, right, you know. But we all was loadmasters flying 130s in Vietnam, so we had, you know, DFCs and.
Why did you go into flight steward? Were they down?
Yeah, they were overage of loadmasters because the Vietnam was closing down, and some of my friends were getting sent back to the old outfits, you know, and because there was overage, and I didn't want to go back. I wanted to stay flying, and so I went up to the personnel and I said, "What can I do to stay flying?" And they said, "Well, you be a flight steward." And I said, that don't sound very, I don't know. So anyway, and then a couple weeks later, one of my friends got orders to go back to munitions where he came from. And I said, we're back up, okay, let's take a look at this. So, you know, it wound up being a very good deal, you know, because, well, my wife had to get a security clearance too, you know, 'cause, I mean, when you sit there serving the Secretary of State or the Vice President of the United States and they're there having business talks and you just learn not to listen, you know, but of course, you know, the possibility of you doing something is big, you know, so yeah, and I know our phones were tapped, I could tell, you know, and I mean, it was just a job, you know, that's the way it was, and we did a lot of interesting stories there. I was all over the world. I've been in Moscow many times, and one time I was there when Nixon was visiting Moscow, and we was on a backup airplane, and Kissinger was there and all them. And the runway kind of looked like Andrews with all the airplanes there from the United States. But we what we call the Walker troops, that's the people that do the communications for the president, make sure everything's straight. And we get kind of, being a flight steward, we kind of took care of serving them and to make sure they had what they needed and all that kind of stuff. Well, and the Secret Service loved just being back there in the galley with us because, you know, it's a long flight just sitting there while we let them wash dishes while they make time go by, you know. They loved it, you know. They just loved getting back there and doing those things, Secret Service guys. So my buddy got talking with them, he said, and Kissinger left Moscow and went down to St. Petersburg or something for the night, and says, "Can you get us into the Kremlin, see what it looks like?" Yeah, so we went over at a certain time at the door, you know, and he let us in, and we're in Nixon's room and all this stuff, you know, and it's pretty neat, you know, but had a lot of experiences like that with different people, and a lot of dignitaries, and I had one trip one time, and my guy from Kentucky, his name was Ford. Well, he used to be the governor and everything, big man in Kentucky, right? And we had a bunch of senators. He was a senator, and we went, I don't know where we was going, down South America or somewhere. Anyway, he got talking. I said, I'm originally from Kentucky, a little place called Taylorsville. He said, "Oh, I know Taylorsville." He said, he got named off some doctors there and all he's good friends with. And I said, "Yeah, I know them, you know." And he said, "Well, give me your dad's phone number." And I gave him a call and told him we was on here together. And I thought about it. My dad he would just, "Who the hell is it?" You know. So I said, "Well, I don't have it with me." But at that time, I was getting my hometown paper come out once a week, you know. And so I was getting that, and so you know, I get it, and here he wrote into the paper about a small world of flying with me, you know, and all. And my dad, boy, he was passing that around all over town, you know, to make sure everybody knew about it. But things like that happened, you know. It was a good deal. And I want to back up. When I was flying 130s in Vietnam, my brother was there in Marines, and when I got sent to Okinawa, I said, "Hey," I got hold of him. I said, "You can go home." I said, "Because I'm in country every month, 2 or 3 weeks every month." But he had caught malaria, and they brought him out of the bush, and he was in charge of a beer bar house up there somewhere, in Dong Ha or whatever it was. And he said, "Oh, I'll just finish it out." And I said, "Okay." Well, then we had all the 130s there, we had a deal that somebody had to pull duty loadmaster for 3 weeks at a time down at Tan Son Nhut. It was in case you had to make an airdrop. You were the spare, you need 2 loadmasters. You were the spare loadmaster to go out with whatever crew it was. And So I was going down for that, and I got hold of him. I said, I'm going to be in Tonsanoo for 3 weeks, down Saigon. He said, okay. Well, he went into his commander up there. He's in the Marines, right? So I'm going to go down to Saigon for a few days. And he said, well, yeah, I'm sure you would. Well, you don't do that. He said, well, my brother's down there. Your brother's down there? Okay, don't tell anybody. Well, let you go down there. So he came down and stayed with me for a couple of weeks there in Saigon, and that was good. And another thing is that that guy I really got friends with when we went through C-130 school, he wound up getting, I don't know, he went home. He was out of Washington State up there, the 141 was up there, and got back, and his wife wanted a divorce. So when we got to Okinawa, he found out, well, I'm getting a divorce, And so we had one special mission. We flew out of Yuban, Thailand. We go up there 6 weeks, I think it was. And it was, we had black C-130s and we do the red lights, and we fly up and down the Ho Chi Minh Trail at night. And we had these big starlight scopes that go out. You sit on a bench like this, and you swung around out the troop door, and you could, if somebody hit a cigarette down there, it would be a big flare in your eyes, all right? And you could see those little slits on the trucks coming down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. That's how they got supplies from North Vietnam down to South Vietnam, And so we spot those, and mark them, and then bring fighters in on them and stuff. But we're in Laos. That's Laos, so. They got anti-aircraft guns coming up to you. Go up 30, 35, 100 rounds a night up at us. And when you go down there, you had to fly 3 missions with somebody, another crew, to get orientated what the job was. So my buddy was there, Larry, so I went out with him for 3 missions, And of course, the 4th mission, I got off and got back with my crew, and they got shot down that night up in Laos. And never heard any more from them till, of course, in Laos, they didn't go in there. That's not their country, and not ours. And that was pretty bad. That was, of course, my wife knew him and everything, and actually the engineer on that crew was a good friend of mine too. And since then, I finally got to. I went to the Vietnam Wall and looked him up and other friends. There were more friends than that, but yeah, it's sorry. It took a while to do that. I don't know why. I just did, but I'd done it a few years ago finally. Went up there and seen the wall, done all that, and see his name, and took the thing of it. But I just hope that he got his insurance changed from his ex-wife to his mother, I don't know if you know this or not, but when you're missing an action, enlisted get it promoted every time they're eligible while you're missing an action. And I was out of the Air Force and working at the post office here in Bellevue, and having lunch one day and reading the paper, and they had the article that they found that uncovered the plane and their bodies and their bones, and so now they go in there. This was back in the 80s or back in the 90s, probably late 80s, 90s. And he was a staff sergeant when he got shot down, and he's listed as Chief Master Sergeant, But yeah, that was a bad 6 weeks of doing that stuff. I mean, we get a lot of, when we had flares on board, and that was a big thing. The whole airplane was loaded with flares. They're about, I don't know, that long and that big around, and each one of them is 2 million candle power. So they take a hit in the belly, it's over, I mean, and we had this man-made ramp that was, so sometimes we get TIC, troops in contact or something, and so we're dropping flares, over, they'd move us over somewhere else and drop flares or whatever. And one time we had to come back and flare a U-Bahn because there was satchel charges coming in there, and we had to wait to get the runway cleared off so we could come back and land. But sorry, I hadn't thought about that in a while. I try not to think about some of that stuff, but
if no one hears about it, it'll be forgotten.
Yeah. And when they had this other deal they done, it was called rivet wagon, and we had an antenna on some of the airplanes that went out the side, and it would pick up ignitions on truck. And I got trained on our crew, so I got his headset on it. One side's intercom, the other side's this thing's static, and but it would come up a little arrow thing like, and I could tell the guy on the starlight scope, okay, look at 2 o'clock, so many meters out. Oh yeah, got him, and we'd mark them and bring in the fighters. And we had a fighter shot down one night working with us, and because we're going around, we're circling this way, all right, because we're doing everything out the right door, and the co-pilot's he's the kind of the forward conserver up front. The pilot, his head's in the thing. A lot of times we flew with 3 loadmasters, so sometimes one of us would be down on our belly by the pilot, looking out that window there, watching for bullets coming up, or a 35 millimeter anti-aircraft fire. And that stuff would explode. We got doors open, right, and you could smell it. Sometimes it sprinkle on the airplane, but I used to get my head hit because there's stuff coming up and he bounced like that. And I'm hitting the back of his seat, man, on the head. But anyway, the navigator, he's the only one he can have a light on, so he's got a curtain around him, right? Because he got to see it. And I always hear that, brake right. Oh, it's coming up here. Shit, go left, because the bullets are coming up. And for every one you see, there's 3 others or 2 others, right? So every third round is a tracer. 35 millimeter. So when you see 5, well, there's 15. All right, you know what I'm saying? And but navigators kind of write this down, keeping the ideals and kind of keep us on course and all that stuff. So we had it gets pretty shook up for them, And one night we had a starlight scope because you got a troop door open. You're down like this out there, and then. We usually just we had chest packs, parachutes, so we put the harness on and lay the chest pack over somewhere, right? And we strap into on the static line thing with their thing. Well, we had this guy, it wasn't on my airplane, we were out there at night, but it wasn't on our airplane. This navigator was on it, and some reason he put his chest pack on. And when we went to close up, he'd come around and hooked the pull on the parachute, but the parachute went out the door and he went out after it, right? And so he got on the ground. He's got it ready. He's got all this stuff, right? We all had all this survival equipment, and so we're flaring over 10 miles from him to kind of divert attention, you know what I'm saying? Because they know something's going on. But he spent the night down there, and they picked him up the next day, and he quit flying. He said, "No, I'm not going up there anymore." I don't blame him. He talked about, all these sounds you hear out there at night, and he knows they're looking for him because they know something came home. But yeah, he quit flying, and I don't know where I left off here. Where am I at? I don't know.
Let's go with what was the most scariest thing that happened while you were in country?
Oh, that would be hard to say. I've had so many different times. One time most of the time we're just hauling cargo, and a lot of time, and haul a lot of bodies, okay?
Really?
They have these fights, and I can tell you, I don't know how they do their counting, but the news says they had a scrimmage, and so many enemy lost, and so many, four casualties U.S., and we go in and pick up 10 bodies. I don't know, but the body bags, they're just in body bags. All those airplanes you have to take the hatches out and fly because they smell, We've done a lot of that, and one time we got set up pretty good and hit the hydraulic lines, and I had to pour almost a case of hydraulic fluid in to get the wheels down, and I pumped the wheels down before by hand and because of different. We got there's a lot of bullet holes for those airplanes. So you're flying low level, you're going in and landing little dirt strips. There's a lot of small arms stuff. But the scariest was that it was flying in the Laos. So those when you got AAA coming at you, that's not. It brings you down. It don't just harm the airplane. One time we had a bladder bird. What we call it? They had this big bladder they load on the pallets, and it goes in and it's got to fill it with fuel, and we got a pump to pump it out on the ramp, and we go in these little dirt strips, little places, and pump it out for the helicopters there to refuel and everything. So we pump it out of the dirt deals. And we was going in someone little one day, and and that bladder, that thing just rocks back and forth, all this stuff. And we landed in the strip, went over kind of like that. There was a village down there, and we blew it. The brake went out on one side, so we got his anti-skid, so both of them kind of go out, and we turned off the end of there, and I looked out. I was looking out that prop like that was digging dirt, you know, and peeled off the tires a little bit, and we had to get some maintenance there before it got out again. One time we blew a tire up by Cambodia, and we were waiting for it to bring a wheel in, tire, and somebody flied in, and of course we started getting motored and all that, and I flying in, had the Jeep light on, and it's dark, getting rid of the tire off and all that, and so I'm in the bunker, and the pilot says, go turn the light off that Jeep. And I said, don't think so. That's what they're aiming at. But it's the first time I ever did that again. The co-pilot went over and he got a bronze star for it or something. I don't know. Sorry, I didn't do it. I didn't earn that one. I do have a Distinguished Flying Cross and 5 Air Medals and Purple Heart and all the other stuff that goes with it. You know, so.
What was the happiest part
Happiest part?
in country?
In country, coming home. Both times. I don't. Yeah, that's it. I mean, you know, the big thing about that is they have a survival school, you know, for that stuff, and they waived all that when I was going over there. And I'm stationed up in Andrews, in Washington D.C., and they needed to fill slots, so they sent me survival school, and I'm out there, you know, and up in Spokane, Washington, you know, and you know you get captured and all this stuff like the real thing. Well, it's been nice to have this before I went over there, you know. But that's the way they do things, right?
What makes a man put back on that flight suit and go back out and fly?
So duty. I mean, I got wounded, but I ran back at it. Never really thought about not doing it. That's what I joined up for. You know, that's what. I don't know. I guess I was young too.
How was your once you returned from Vietnam? How was your reception back here in the States?
First time I got spit on and stuff.
Really?
Yeah, when I came back in January '67 into San Francisco, yeah, and it wasn't good. You don't know all that's going on, you know, when you're over there for a year. You don't pay attention to it. And just kind of surprised me, you know, that, I mean, that was just happening once in the time, and there's, I don't know, some people kind of treat you a little different, you know, I thought when you come back, but that was it. The second one, we come back in 71, I guess, early 71, the whole family came back, and we didn't have any problem with that. I mean, so at that time, but the first time it was a little shocking.
When you flew with the presidential steward, as a steward, that job, was there one person that impressed you?
I think President Ford. I flew with him a lot when he was vice president. And very personal, very, like he cared. I mean, some of them you don't even, like, some of them you couldn't even talk to, you know, they just kind of, but he was, we kind of had a thing that he didn't trust his wife or something, because we'd be out on these trips all over the country and everything, and then we'd have to go back to Washington, and we go back out the next day, right back out. Why didn't we stay, you know? I remember one time we went into Las Vegas, and it was just a short stop of like 10 hours, which sounds like a lot, but we had to put the airplane to bed. Security reasons, nobody else comes on an airplane, so we got to clean it, do all this, restock, And of course, we got to in Las Vegas, and we didn't go to bed too early, right? So I was one of the guys that I was the head steward, but one of the guys working the stateroom, and it was early. They get some coffee and some orange juice and stuff, and we had waiting on some of the other passengers or something. I can't remember. We wasn't taking off yet, but Ford was in the stateroom and with somebody else, and this guy. He's kind of one of those guys that just could tell a joke and you laugh, you know. This flight steward, and his eyes were bleeding, man. And I mean, he hadn't been to bed hardly. And I walked through his stateroom, and Ford looked at him and said, "Did you get a lot of rest last night, Sergeant?" And John's this guy's name. He said, "Had a very enjoyable evening, sir." And Ford looked, "Did you get a lot of rest last night, Sergeant?" He said, "Had a very enjoyable evening, sir." And Ford just cracked up, you know. But he was that type guy, you know. He was easy to get along with.
Is there one funny incident happened while you were flying as a steward?
I don't know if I go into some of that.
Oh, okay, then.
You know, I tell you, one time we were flying all over Saudi Arabia and Egypt and all over in there, and we had got McDonald's hamburgers, not quite cooked, and we got at that time McDonald's had their hats, you know, and the tray thing, and I mean, they're eating goat meat and all, the dignitaries are with Kissinger and all that, and we broke it out after we'd been over quite a few days for one of the flights we were going between, and had the hamburgers and the fries, you know, all the whole thing with all the stuff that goes with it. So one of the guys got a picture of Kistner with his McDonald's hat on and the tray, and McDonald's probably pay a lot of money for that, but we can't do that. Well, stuff like that, you know, we do.
How did Vietnam shape you for your future life?
I think it's more of do today. We don't know tomorrow. I think there's a lot of it right there. You know, be where you're at and do what you're doing.
You go any reunions?
No, not from there. I go to some reunions from presidential.
So most of the friends from the service are from what portion of your service?
My what?
Your friends.
I don't really have much contact with the ones that was back in the Vietnam days. And more of the Air Force One days. And I don't know, we just got scattered all over and never. I used to have contact with them for a while, but over the years, you know, it just, you know, that was a long time ago.
How, you know, since you spent a long time in the military, how did your feelings change? Or did your feelings change about the military as it is now?
I don't know. I don't think I was under any false feelings about the military. I think I pretty knew what I was getting into and what I was doing, and I think you know, today the military's changed. I retired in 1984. You know, it's a long time ago, but I think they're might be moving in kind of the right direction with all the joint command stuff and everything, and not duplicating this and that and the other. And when I first seen that, I thought, what's this? You know, Navy and Air Force on the same base and doing all this, you know. But when you look at the big picture, I think that's a good way to go, saving money and saving personnel and stuff. So I think they're going in the right direction, and I sometimes think I don't know, maybe it works better, but do a civilian contract on a lot of stuff. I don't know. I think that kind of takes away sometimes from of it.
A lot of Vietnam vets come back and they hold their story inside. And I appreciate what you've given a little bit of that you have given us. Have you told anyone else any of these stories?
My wife knows some. I mean, she has to. But well, I told some to the doctor. I got some disability for PTSD, and so you have to go into some of it, right? And, but I don't think I've ever told anybody everything, you know.
I appreciate what you have told us. Is there anything else that you would like to cover?
I don't think, I can't remember what I've covered for sure, but I think that's
what would you like to tell the future of your past, future people, of what you're experienced, to educate them?
well, I'm kind of responsible for a couple of my wife's nephews going in the military, going into the Air Force. You know, they took with it okay, but I think it's a good place to grow up. Military, if you don't retire from there, it's a good place to grow up and get away from mom and dad and everything, and maybe see, if you see some other world, the rest of the world, maybe you realize what we got here compared to what other people have. I think about that a lot, because I've seen a lot of atrocities, I guess you would say.
To leave on to end on a better note, what was the best place you've ever seen?
I kind of like Australia and New Zealand. Well, New Zealand, I think New Zealand over Australia. It was. I liked it there. It was just, I don't know, just one of the places you kind of like, you know.
You ever take your wife there?
No, I never have. And it's kind of funny. Because I've been to Paris several times, different places all over the world. And of course, she hadn't, but she went to Okinawa, you know, and she was over there. But her daughter, her youngest daughter, graduated from Lincoln, and she got a Fulbright grant to go to France and teach in the school there for a year. But she'd been over before. French was one of her majors, French and English, minor in English and advertising. But anyway. She went over studying for 12 weeks one time, myself, and she had met a Frenchman, right? So she was going back over there, so we figured, well, this is a good chance. I mean, I've been to Paris before, but my wife never has, so let's go over and take a visit, you know, while she's there teaching. And I think about 3 weeks before we left, she says, well, we're getting married while you're here. So now we're going to a French wedding, you know, and it was, I guess she got married. I didn't understand anything they said, but it was very, very good. So, but my wife's we've been to France now. This was 26 years ago. She's been living there now, and of course we go over quite often. She comes home usually every year, but pandemic's put a short. We stopped at that last couple of years, but 2019 was the last time we was over, and so. If you ever need to go to Paris, I've been there so many times. I'm a tour guide, all right. So.
Well, Bill, thank you for your service.
It wasn't too bad. Did you get it?
Oh, yeah.